Hey there, Stone Monk Gamer here. A couple of days before Holy Havoc 2017, and I'm deep into kind of finishing up my display board, my army, miniatures, etc. Man, I'm a little further behind than I expected to be, and but I think it's going to come together. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be doing a little bit of hobby while I'm talking about some of this prep. And again, I'm just putting this out of here so I can get some practice shooting video, putting up content, and that sort of thing. So I didn't plan anything. I don't have my partner. So Holy Havoc is a team tournament, and this year, for the second time, Davey Red underscore Zeke is my partner. So we are bringing. So we each bring 1,000 points, and we thought we'd do something a little different. And part of it was just like, hey, let's go off our passions. What are we really into as far as the building armies and putting something together? And because we were originally going to go with a dual death army, Flesh Eater Court, and then he was going to do I was going to do Flesh Eater Court, and he was going to do a Death Rattle Night Haunt mix. And but we just got caught up in other passions. So Davey is bringing Caradron Overlords, 1,000 points with at least so it's 1,000 points and then a 500 sideboard, which just gives you some options. Gives you for me especially just putting on the display board and that sort of thing. And painting up cool models and showing a more completed army, I guess, for my sake. And then I'm bringing Soulblight because that's kind of what I was getting in. I was kind of working on that a bit before GHB 2017 came out, so just having those new command abilities and or command traits and artifacts and stuff was fantastic. It was great and invigorating and felt rewarding. It paid off. Kind of being working on this army. So, but we had a plan that because Caradron are airborne, and in Soulblight you can get quite a bit of almost every single unit except for Blood Knights are flying, and then with the new one of the new traits, you can make everything fly. Now, we'd kind of decided on these armies prior to the GHP 2017 coming out, so I had nixed Blood Knights from my list, and I still have staved off. I kind of went back and forth a couple of times, but I've staved off Blood Knights from my list. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about, I guess, prep, building the army, what I'm bringing, some of the story behind it, and I'm sure maybe Davey and I will get a chance to talk about it, his army too, while we're down there or sometime after. But if not, you know, he better just get his phone going and shoot some videos. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Havoc, and I'm going to get a little more paint on my palette. So Havoc, some different things, interesting things. So again, 1,000 points. Going with GHB Army Construction for match play. Instead of last year, we did kind of a free form, which was awesome. I know there was some complaint or critique that everybody just brought big, huge stomping monsters, but I tell you, that was so much fun. If I'd had more stomping monsters painted, or even whatever, I would have been all, brought all the cool stuff to you. So, but it didn't matter if games ended quickly. It was just a lot of fun. It was just cool seeing so much stuff on the table and stuff that you would never usually see because of other restrictions. So. This year, though, it's match play, so 1,000 point Vanguard, and then 500 points on the side. Now, I don't know, so I haven't played a lot with sideboard. I haven't played a lot of tournaments in general, but it's like I said, for me, it's as much about being able to just bring more models and put them on the display board, and model some cool stuff. So. So what's my list now? Soulblight, and there's a cool video by MC1 Gamer unlocking Soulblight with. Oh, I'm sorry, James. I don't remember your channel's name. I'm terrible at this. I'll get there. I should have had that written down. But kind of looking through the units and that sort of stuff. So go check that out on MC1 Gamer's channel. What so what I've gotten a chance to play them a couple of times, but here's my list. So my centerpiece list is Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. You always have to have in any army that you build it. I prefer to have a centerpiece model, something that's just, I don't know, the icon, the representation of your army. Not necessarily, it has to be the representation of everyone's army, and it's your version, it's your paint job, it's your color scheme, but the big centerpiece model. I just think it's rewarding. It's cool seeing it on the table, and in this case, the Zombie Dragon, Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon does a lot of work. So in 1,000 points, he's at 440, so he's nearly half, and so I need him to do a lot of work. I need him to be tough. I need him to last longer, and all that kind of thing. And so I've got to protect him to some extent. I got to make sure that he gets into the combats and doing what he wants, and isn't slowed down or chopped up by what my opponent wants. So that's something I got to think about. One of the things to note about the Holy Havoc event is that both of us, Davey and I, have a Warlord in addition to our units, and the Warlord has a special custom war scroll, and he'll be growing and gaining achievements and even some skill cards throughout the weekend. So he's going to be able to gain like extra rend, extra attacks, extra damage, the fly ability, although my Warlord's going to be able to get the fly ability from the get-go, whereas a lot of others are going to have to wait until the third round to have that ability. And so so the Warlords are super unique, but everybody has them, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how people build them, kit them out, and kind of make him. This Warlord, he or she, is going to have to do a lot of work. So I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So I've got the Warlord, I've got the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. I've got a Vampire Lord on. Basically a flying horror, so it has wings, etc. And I could have taken on Nightmare and given it fly anyway, but it just gives it the flying horror has 10-inch movement instead of 5 or 6. So I really wanted to get that extra movement in there. Then I've got so those are kind of heroes, but base on the table is going to be the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon. I'm going to try and bring them as many times as I can. There may be a scenario where I'll swap out the Vampire Lord, but we'll see. And then the Warlord's always on the table, is always your general. So what's interesting there is that you don't get to use the command ability of your Zombie Dragon or Vampire Lord, which, again, I haven't played a ton of battles with them, but I think most people would be used to those command traits, and so going to have to be working off of some new command traits that people haven't maybe played very much with. Then I've got for battle line 2 units of 3 Vargeist. So like I said, this is 1,000 points. Vanguard, you need 2. Units of battle line, and I thought about again, could I fit a unit of Blood Knights in? Yeah. Could I? Maybe a unit of Blood Knights and a unit of Vargeist, yeah, but not much else in that 1,000 points, and so I'd be pretty stuck as far as how much. Yes, I could move quickly, but how much could I really get? How much space could I take up? Could I really do what I needed to kind of block charges against my my Warlord and against my Zombie Dragon, so that they can be where they want to be. So what I've done is instead of the Blood Knights, then I've got a unit of 6. Well, what I'm basically going to do is it's 240 points left over. That's either going to be some Fellbats and even maybe a Bat Swarm to protect me against some shooting, or it's going to be a summoning pool. And in my summoning pool, so as I mentioned, I've got Fellbats and Bat Swarms. And some of those I've got just because they're going to look cool. I don't know if I'll show you what I've got for my conversions here. It's not going to look great. Probably better in pictures posted on Twitter. But so besides that, then I've got Dire Wolves. Now, Dire Wolves don't fly. So I'm kind of breaking my fly rule. However, I was able to kind of come up with a conversion that fits my theme really well. Like I'm very satisfied with how well they fit in, and feel like they'd be a part of the army. Of course, you'd bring these guys even if they don't fly. Plus, the whole idea is you can summon them, so it's basically your lunch. You eat lunch on the road, wherever you want. You can stop and grab a bite. You can always summon more of these because they're all over the realms, I guess. Um, so and then lastly, what I did is so I brought a banshee, a tomb banshee, just in case there's a need for an extra hero or something to that effect. What's nice with summoning is that you can break your hero limit, and obviously your faction heroes and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got a banshee to add a little bit of flavor, some variety, and I've got a slight conversion to make her fit the kind of flying theme. So in general, my Death Army is a kind of, as historically when I built Death Rattle, was bones and feathers, and then now it's a lot of for Soulblight is a lot of so instead of it's a lot of birds. So instead of fell bats, it's fell ravens. Instead of bat swarms, it's raven swarms, etc. So yeah, and so the kind of the idea is that while the fell bats and the bat swarms don't pack the punch that Blood Knights would, they're going to be easier chaff. I'm going to feel better about sending them forward, clogging some lanes up, and kind of just taking up board, a little bit of board control, and that sort of thing. There are also there's a couple of things I'm optimistic for. So I've played with the Vargeist. I like anything. They're not a point and click and auto win kind of selection, but each Vargeist is a mini hero. They're 4 wounds each, 3 up, -1 rend, 2 damage. A unit is a unit of 3, I think, is doing 10 attacks, and so I think that's quite a bit. And if they roll 6, they get an extra attack, and they have they don't. One of the things that they don't have is the ability to heal a wound like other death units. None of this stuff actually does, except for the vampires. It's interesting. Soulblight is a very hero centric, which I think fits the fluff a bit. All of their artifacts, all of their command traits are very much like helping the vampire be a better combat character, or more aloof. Like it's very, there's a lot of ego in that, which I think fits vampires really well. But that means you're not getting a lot of like unit buffing, which while the zombie dragon, vampire lord and zombie dragon, and the vampire lord have traits that can, or command abilities that can buff other units, I'm not going to be able to rely on those. So the units are what they are. So I think it's really going to take some finesse in making sure that I can pick the right battle. I do have the ability to turn it into a 3-drop with the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, 1 unit of Vargeist, and then a 2nd unit of Vargeist, and then again I can keep everything else in summon, so that could be interesting. On the other hand, I don't know if I'm going to need to have bodies out on the table to create that screen right away. I don't remember. I haven't talked to Davey much as far as like what he's able to put on the table, and sorry, what I mean by that is how many drops he has. Just see if, are we just going to end up going second or at the mercy of what our opponents choose every round? I don't know. Soulblight doesn't have any kind of battalions, doesn't have anything to kind of improve that. Credrin do, but I don't. Davey's not taking any because again, we're at 1,000 points. So maybe I'll be able to provide some advantage, but we'll see. So like I said, I need to use the Fellbats, I need to use the Bat Swarms to kind of plunk in place and create the blocks. It's possible they could, cruise around again. So I've got stuff that have movement 16 and movement 14, so a lot of that. And so hopefully they'll be able to get around, and maybe they can do something courageous and take out a hero or something to that effect. But for the most part, they're going to be harassing and doing all that kind of stuff. Each of the Havoc scenarios, each battle round has 4 objectives. There is usually a hold and have the most in count points after every turn, and at the end of the game, whoever has the most points from the game wins. So they get 1 total victory point. There is that's called the Havoc objective. There is a Warpstone objective, so you're either mining it or you are kind of by this Warpstone artifact, and you're charging it up and shooting it at the enemy. There's a lot of kind of interesting, or you're gathering it up and trying to get it back to your, wherever you need it. And then there's a Warlord objective, which is often either trying to get some of that Warpstone from the enemy units, or just trying to do a lot of killing, fighting. One of them is whichever Warlord has the most kills the most models, and another one is does the most damage. So there's a couple of things there that a couple of different ways that goes, but pretty standard. And then there is a kind of the main objective of each one, and that one probably has the most variance, and that one's where you give maybe Warpstone to a unit and they have to carry it to a new location, or survive throughout their own, or do the most damage while carrying it, or there's a kind of the more standard things that you would see. But every battle round, or every game has those 4 objectives plus a sports objective. So if you get a nomination for that game of being the best opponent, then you get another point. So a lot of cool stuff there, a lot to keep track of. So what I've done is I've gone through all of the scenarios, and I tried to, I don't necessarily have a game plan for all of them yet with my models, but I was able to kind of go through, look at each objective for each scenario, and kind of create a shorthand version of it, quick reference, if you would. Just so that when we're playing at the table, we can read through it together with the other team. We can, how do I put it? We can, reread, relearn what the differences between the 4 objectives are, and then during the game, I think it's easy to forget. Now, I do think in this kind of case, you gotta kind of pick and choose what you're going to work on. Maybe you don't have the models to hold an objective over the other guy, and so then is it worth contesting that, or is it better to just let them have it and make sure they don't get something else? And so that's something that's going to be the Warlord. The Warlord objective is interesting because last year we had 1 Warlord between the 2 of us. We had to kind of decide together what would that Warlord do, which was fine. Davey and I generally work together pretty well, all that kind of stuff. But this year we each get our own Warlord, and they act independently. And the Warlord scenario, according to, I think, Steve Herner was on Warhammer Weekly last week Wednesday, and according to him, only one of our Warlords needs to meet that objective, and so if it's like a number of wounds killed, where both our Warlords are trying for it, but only if mine gets the objectives and his doesn't, our team still scores that objective. So That's kind of good. If it could make for both of us trying to get something to ensure we get it, or if one of us thinks that we have a better shot at it than the other one, then that frees up that other warlord to maybe go and just be a beat stick on the table, or go do something different. But there's a lot to think of. There's a lot to remember, and so hopefully that shorthand gives us the ability to just quickly remember while we're on the table, where we're at each hero phase, going thinking about what we want to do, or between phases thinking about what we want to do. I hope it helps us, just give us a little bit of clarity, a little bit of easy reference. Yeah, it's interesting. I think Davey's bringing. I think I got a rundown or a little bit of what some other people are bringing for Crad and Overlord, and I think Davies is probably pretty similar. It's very diverse. He's using a lot of the different models, potentially 2 different boats, which is cool, and hopefully it just looks sweet on the table. He's also working pretty hard to get that all accomplished in the time frame, but it will be what it'll be. So the thing though with his is that because he's bringing Caradrin, while not a horde army, he has the ability. He's got at least 3 units with 10 models in it that could potentially be on the board. So definitely not, that's no skeletons, but it's pretty good. And especially with mine, I mean, I literally have, I think, what did I say, 22 models total in my army, and my must drops are 7 models between the Zombie Dragon and the Vargeist. So gonna need some help if we get into that pinch. Like I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 of my units can potentially get above 5, maybe up to 10. Only one of the dire wolves can get up to 10. So you need 5 to claim an objective, and so I don't have a lot of those options. So I think that my job is going to be going out and trying to create the block, trying to run interference so that Davey can control the board, control objectives, that sort of thing. So backstory wise, which is going to be kind of fun. So we've got to come up with a backstory for our warlord, all that kind of stuff. So my warlord is Terhalde. He is basically, I would say, he's a vampire that's taken on the blood rage, or has a blood rage curse, which means that he just doesn't control himself like a vampire would, could. And so he raged about a century ago, and he's got 2 siblings, and siblings is basically they were sired by the same vampire, but that sire is long gone, and so the 3 of them kind of rule together, although the older brother, Reinhold, is the eldest, I guess, or he's just the most powerful of the 3. So so the blood curse took him over, and he killed a village under their protection. And his older brother locked him away for 100 years, 1 for each of the souls that he killed. And so he's he's got the reason for letting him out is that it's been that 100 years, but in that time he's made a blood pact with a fleet, a Caradrin fleet, and it is time to pay up. So flip over to Davy's crew. His warlord has taken on the assignment to go into this area to just hit the slipstreams and get some warpstone. And so the Havoc event is all about grabbing these warpstone, and that's because Steve's big with his rats and hats and the Skaven and that sort of stuff. So I think they play a big part. Excuse me. his fleet has to do that, and they've called in the my Soulblight to be kind of bodyguards, to be flying with them and assist. So, so that's what they're gonna do. Yeah, so we're coming in together, flying together over to these places, these different deposits where we find warpstone, and try and make a go of it. So I guess a couple of things that we've done then for prep. Obviously, we're working on our models, working on our armies and building those, and even up until last week, we were still finalizing kind of what was in the list. And not trying to be gamey, not trying to be too competitive. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think you want to go in and you want to play hard and give people good games. But more so, one, you want a good list that's fun to play, has a lot of variety, and can compete a little bit. Two, what are you going to put on your display table? What are people going to see that rounds out the army and shows kind of the height of what this army could be in my case, with a lot of conversions, showing a variety, especially with Soulblight having so few units. How can I show that variety, etc.? And that was really why the decision on the allies is, how can I use the allies to show more variety and show kind of how the theme of this army can expand out. So so a couple other things that. So one of the things besides army list has been just prep for the games. Like I said, I created some kind of shorthand sketches for each of the scenarios to kind of quick reference. I'm working on our army list and backgrounds, kind of 3 sheets that is easy to hand to our opponent at the beginning of every game, so that they can see what our combos are, see what our lists are, etc., and get to know those if they want. Sorry, it's super late because I'm just up hobbying, and I thought I'd record this. And then making sure that we have our lists ready to use, and I've taken my war scrolls and written some notes on it. With the swift death command or bloodline for the Soulblight, everyone gets +2 movement. So instead of adding that up every single time, I just made notes. I just wrote on the war scrolls what that new movement is, etc. And I'm gonna have to wrap this up because this is getting bad video. So a couple of those things that I don't want to keep looking up or remembering to add 2 inches, etc. So let's just put it on there. So just a lot of that prep, so that at the table we're not doing a lot of administration, we're not doing a lot of asking questions, and we can just play the game, play with our opponents. There's a lot of great people that are coming to the Havoc event, a lot of great hobbyists. There's going to be fantastic models on the table and terrain, etc. And why spend the time looking in a book when you can be playing other people? So I still got a lot of the pack to just keep pouring through and making sure I know all the pieces. A lot of people mention that is for tournament prep, is read the pack. Absolutely, you need to know what's going on. Especially if your opponents don't, or the other people at the table. You don't want 4 people or 2 people both clueless. Anyway, I've got a little bit more on my terrain. And I'm not totally happy with it. I wish I had a little bit more time with the terrain. Some of it just looks like foam that's been cut up into rocks or whatever. Wish I had more time to blend it and make it look different. I've got a few more pieces on my army to do. The Warlord's going to be the kind of last thing that I'm working on, but I've still got some other heroes that all the units are done. So I'm just working on my 3-4 heroes, making sure that they have the attention they deserve. And I guess I could let me see if I can show a little bit of it. So this is my Warlord. He is a Vargeist body with a couple of some wings, some orc armor, and orc head, just to make him look like a more brutal vampire. A lot of stuff hanging on him, and he's got his Havoc sword, and then he's got this chalice that I bashed together. So he's drinking on the run. So this is my warlord. I've got a better base for him, obviously, than this, but got some more highlighting to do. But his name is Terhold. He's going to tear up the table. I've got my Vampire Lord Flying Horror. Now, this was originally going to be a Vampire Lord on Abyssal Terror, but you actually can't ally that in with Soul Blight. You can do a mixed death and get that in, but this is a vampire and a spectral phoenix flying through the building. It's got a couple of spirit hosts. Thought about running it as a Coven Throne, but I just didn't think I didn't have enough WYSIWYG on here. So, yeah. So this is kind of part Neferata, part Phoenix King, and changed the cloak a little bit so it's flying backwards instead of just hanging down. But excited to put her on the table, and then obviously the centerpiece. Probably seen him the most on the Twitters, and that is my Vampire Lord on Zombie Griffin. That shield's going to change. Still working through that, but pouncing down on a Terrorgeist. But just really like how he's turned out, and can't wait to play him on the table. I haven't played him on the table since he's been all assembled. So something to do there. My Vargeist then. These guys are all done, and I really dig them. I'll get you a couple examples. So I have a bunch that are sitting on the ground, but then I've got a couple that are kind of up and flying through the air. This guy's landing down on a piece and ready to get his fists in the claws in the action. This guy's flying up and kind of bashing through some terrain, etc., and ready to come down on it. So these guys are fantastic. Really enjoy it. Now, they're not as big as Vargeist in total, but I think I've captured enough of their essence. What's interesting is that the Vargeist War Scroll, the hit to wound and all that kind of number of attacks, etc., is basically like a brute boss, and so you have 3 brute bosses. So from a rule standpoint, they're just as vicious. I got 6 of those, like I said. I've got some Fell Ravens, which are Aether Wings, but they've got kind of the spectral paint scheme. Again, to match kind of the mama bird. So there's some consistency and connection between those. I've got some Bat Swarms, which are Raven Swarms. These are zombicide ravens or crows, and I've just cut them and glued them so that there's bigger and different shapes, etc. And so I've got a good cloud of these, so they just have a much more dramatic effect. Now, I don't know if I'll field all. Oh, I think I have 6 in the list. I could field 8, but I don't think I'll field all of them. But at the same time, 6 of them, that's 30 wounds. That's my best chance for kind of a. What was that put to for? Yeah, 6. It's not a lot of model count, but it's my most wounds, and they heal back up if they do any damage. Then if there's a model, with any wounds on it, it'll heal all the way back up. So it's my best kind of durability unit, I think. So there's a chance. I don't know. And there's an interesting the summoning for them. So the base unit is two models, but the summoning rule says you can put up to 3. Now, if you summoned, on a 5-up, and you put all 3, you're paying for 4 basically. But you can only put 3 on the table. That means though, is if you cast, do a 10 or above on the casting, you can double the number of models you bring out, which means you could basically get 3 War Scrolls worth on the table in one casting, which is a little bit different. Most summoning, you're just getting 2 minimum War Scrolls worth. So instead of 10 skeletons, you get 20. Instead of 10 zombies, you get 20, etc. So instead of 5 dire wolves, you get 10. And then last but not least is I'll get a couple of these guys. Are my dire wolves, which are was able to kind of turn them into dead griffins, dire griffins, griffhounds. Sorry, and just really came out well using the direwolf body and then the bird skulls from the skull kit. I'll see if I can bring that guy up at all. But and then for the Doom Wolves, I've indicated them with Stormcast helmets hanging off of the kind of a spike on their back. So anyway, and then I guess last but not least is a Banshee. Throwing a crow out there, letting a crow go. So, she could easily be kind of tied to these, where she's letting them go and they're flocking away from her, etc. So, so just a simple way to tie her together in with the army, giving her some flexibility. I think any self-respecting vampire has, a Banshee or a Wraith in their service. Anyway, Holy Havoc is in 2 days. I've got quite a bit of work ahead of me. I've got some prep ahead of me. Feeling good about the army. Feeling good about what I've got together. I would always love to come back with a trophy or something like that. Last year I won Best Warlord for an Orc conversion, an Auric War Chanter conversion, but I don't have any gimmicks this year. So the conversion last year is I had modeled all the weapons that he could upgrade to, and so by the end of the event he had new tattoos, he had new weapons, all that kind of stuff, because I'd magnetized and painted between rounds. I don't have that this year. I've just got try to create as cool a guy as I could, and give him my attention from paint, even though I'm still kind of kicking it to the end. And the rest is just the labor of love, the things I love. So I'm sure I'll get, everybody's super appreciative of each other's army and work and complimentary. And that's a great environment to be in. I've no kind of hang-ups on whether or not I win any awards or anything whatsoever. It's just going to be fantastic seeing good friends and, oohing and awing over other people's armies, playing lots of fun games, and especially on Herner's, the Holy Wars tables and terrain and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a fantastic weekend. This is what I got. I will try when we come back, do a video on how the Soulblight worked out, how it worked out without Blood Knights. That's kind of a no-no. I mean, who does Soulblight without Blood Knights? Even with the Swift Death, you would get flying Blood Knights. Why wouldn't you do that? And I'm here to tell you, because it just didn't work with my theme this time. My Bloodlights don't have wings. That didn't work for me, except the direwolves. That worked a little bit better. All right. Well, this is Stone Monk This is Stone Monk Gamer signing off. It is late. Please send some comments below. Tell me how your best wishes for me. Send me some good luck. Send me and Davey some luck so that we have a good time and beat some face. Tell me what you think of the army. Tell me what you think of the list. If there's anything you think I should be doing, I can't change the list. But if there's something you think I should play it or try for something, should I try and get 6 birds? There's one objective where you have to give your unit a warp crystal, and the enemy warlord has to try and kill them. And I thought, a swarm of the raven swarms would be hilarious, surrounding the opponent's warlord, trying to kill all those things, and they're just flapping around. So that's maybe one of the goals, is to put them on the table like that. But if you have any other thoughts, things you'd love to see, stories you'd like me to tell, I'll come back with more stories and a review of how they played over 6 games, and see what kind of knowledge I can impart. All right, a lot of rambling for 40 minutes. Please like and subscribe down below. if not this one, like one of the other videos on the channel. Subscribe, tell other people about it. Check out our multicast, the Mortal Realms multicast that we're trying to do monthly again. And yeah, have a great weekend.